However, took a little longer than anticipated, and 25 years later, after almost 100 TV episodes seen in 85 countries, spawning thousands of fan clubs filled with obsessive Trekkies, not to mention 5 full-length movies grossing $400 million, we now arrive at what they say will be the last Star Trek movie, Star Trek VI. In the film, Captain Kirk comes up against his arch-enemies and the murderers of his son, the evil-smelling Klingons. However, times have changed, and in Star Trek VI, peace is on the agenda, which makes Kirk's final mission to escort a Klingon ambassador to a peacemaking multi-life form conference on Earth a challenge in more ways than one.
Now, the crew of the Starship Enterprise
will not be the instigators of full-scale war on the eve of universal peace.
They're coming about.
Battle stations.
fights not to win battles,
Incoming.
Signal our surrender.
Captain?
We surrender!
but to end them forever. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
The paradox of Star Trek, in a way, is that I think Star Trek at its best attempts to show you this time and this place.
In space, all warriors are cold warriors.
If I went to a Hollywood studio and I said, look, I want to make a movie about the collapse of Eastern Europe, the fall of communism, the wall coming down, racism, xenophobia, and economic collapse, they would say, well, doesn't sound too promising. I said, no, it's going to be okay because I'm going to call it Star Trek. And they go, go with God. Because as long as you can pour the wine into that shaped bottle and label it Star Trek on the bottle, then it's okay.
We volunteered.
There's an old Vulcan proverb. Only Nixon could go to China. They're animals, Jim. There is an historic opportunity here.
Don't believe them. Don't trust them.
They are dying.
Let them die.
The assignment was to make the last movie with this cast. And I have no reason to believe that it is not the last movie with this cast. I think in our saner moments, we all know that it's better to leave while the audience is still asking for more than when they're heading for the aisles saying enough already.
I can't make it alone. And you're likeliest candidate to come in this hellhole for months.
Candidate for what? What is it with you, anyway?
I think one of the things about popular culture is it is very hard to assess its long-term value. But whether it's 5,000 years old or it's 10 years old, it's still either good or bad. Nobody has any problem watching Hamlet and understanding what those people are going through.
The undiscovered country. The future.
Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1.
You have not experienced Shakespeare until you have read him in the original Klingon.
So maybe if the dramas of Star Trek are eternal enough, if they are human perennials, then the stuff will exist in spite of the costumes and in spite of the sets and the special effects. I think the thing that sums it up is the ship. That ship on its never-ending voyage of discovery. That is surely some metaphor for us.
Farouk Dundee, are you now or have you ever been a Trekkie?
No, I'm not now and have never been. And I think Nicholas Meyer is worth his weight in gold because I didn't know whether this guy was for real at all. I've just seen the movie and quite a lot of I have seen a lot of the television series. I don't know. I think it was great fun. I think that the visuals are far in excess of anything that the Star Trek series have done. And they're very highly professional standard, but all the bullshit that surrounds it in Trekkie consciousness. Let's tackle this story. The story is about a conference, really. Let's say the Russian ambassador comes to America, to simplify it. Klingon ambassador comes to the Federation and is assured safe passage and gets assassinated. Of course, the assassination is done by a massive conspiracy involving Federation people, Vulcans and Earth persons, and the Klingons, and they've come together in a kind of conspiratorial underground, a kind of JFK movie
I was going to
plot,
say, exactly.
you know, in which the ambassador is killed. Yeah. And of course that leads to potential war, and they have to sort it out. The conspirators are the baddies. We're, of course, with the goodies. The goodies win in the end. Great, huge moral triumph. But the movie absolutely, despite all Mr. Mayer's protestations, fails to confront the central paranoia, the central paradox of this situation, that somewhere Russians and Americans can get together to kill an ambassador even, that they got together to be baddies. But, you know, just about had to make a great effort to get together to be the goodies. And he doesn't actually see that current history has been caused by a movement of the people in Russia.
Well, there would be too many extras if you had to do that. Brian Cox.
It happens because of Chernobyl.
Well, I'm amazed that Farouk can actually remember what the film was about. I mean, I just sat there with my jaw, I think, on my chest. No, and I kept thinking,
Did you hate it?
Well, I didn't hate it. I just thought it was complete nonsense. I mean, it was entertaining, but I couldn't believe the Shakespearean quotes that coming up.
I thought that would appeal to you.
I kept coming up and up and up, and there are all these ex-Stratford, Ontario Canadian actors who in the 50s played things like Laertes and Hamlet, sort of regurgitating the parts they wish they could still be playing, but unfortunately they can't afford to play them anymore, so they've got to do these movies. And and Christopher Plummer, you know, saying, let's slip the dogs of war, cry havoc. I thought, I couldn't believe it. And also the idea of the undiscovered country. Well, as far as I know, the undiscovered country is death.
A misquote. A hit, sir, a palpable hit.
That's what they meant, you see. They're actually going into death so that they can do this in a really dignified... It's really Star Trek for the 60s.
You're a Trekkie underneath.
Well, I had to go to Star Trek 1 and 4 with Julian, and I can realize now that there were no children in the cinema when I went to see it on Sunday at a reasonable hour, and there was all adults, and it's the irony that they were laughing at. It's way above children now, I think.
Listen, we were all laughing here just in those clips. Let's come clean here. It's a very funny, witty, literate
We were also
script.
laughing more at the director and the kind of codswallop he was coming
But
up with.
they take fun out of themselves.
The point of it, surely the point of it is the camp of it.
Yes.
And the Shakespeare.
Yes.
The Shakespeare is not, it's Shakespeare's greatest hits. Yeah. You know, the lines that one can perhaps remember.
Right.
It's akin to listening on a Pan Am flight to Muzak and Tchaikovsky's first concerto coming through. And you know who's done that, and you know why they've done it. And that's what it was all.
Yes.
Why are you taking it so seriously as a bit of Shakespeare? I mean, it's actually a Trekkie thing, and it's making how many 400 million,
$400 million.
You know. And Leonard Nimoy. I mean, this is business. He is the producer. He's going to come back. Now he's killed them all off. He'll probably come back, you know, with his only is the back of his head showing or something like that. I mean, it's busy, and it's great fun. It did dip in the middle, I think, a bit. I fell asleep a bit, but I mean, and then it came zoom again. You know, and to see that woman in the short skirts and everything.
But the power of these things, surely, in all good sci-fi, is that it just takes terrestrial myth and legend and story and puts it into space, and it does it very well.
Yes, but if you want to be, I mean, just to be a little serious for a moment, I think the original television series was actually very good. In a way, it was ahead of its time because all those ecological questions came up at that time and was very in advance of its time.
And indeed, the creator was very keen to
and
have
it was very keen. He was very keen on that, and that was what was quite interesting about it. This is a sort of, it's a tired old pastiche, really. I mean, I think number 4 was when they all came back. You know, when they got caught in the time war, and then Spock and what's his name on the bus. That was much more wittier. But this was a bit of a drudge. This one.
But it does acknowledge how tired it is.
Taking itself off. But when you say don't be serious, some of the actors who've written to the press, Nichelle Nichols, who She says yes. No.
Uhura.
She's the
Lieutenant Uhura.
Black
Quick,
Control.
Farouk, we don't have long.
She was saying to the press that after the first series, I had a crisis of conscience. I went to Martin Luther King, and he said, "Continue. It's good for blacks, good for women, good for humanity."
That is a good
sure.
last place. And all I would say, any film that ends by quoting J.M. Barrie on the second star to the right and straight on till midnight shows this is just all boys good stuff. Thank you, Brian Cox, Farouk Dondi and Yvonne Brewster. And Star Trek VI is showing at a cinema near you.